U.S. Donald Trump has held a campaign rally in the southern state of Alabama. He said the latest criminal charges against him are ridiculous. He says charges over his alleged efforts to overturn the presidential election results were an illegal and unconstitutional travesty. He claimed President Biden was trying to preserve his grip on power. Our Washington correspondent, Sean Dilley, reports.
From the beginning of our movement, it's really been a true force in American politics that's dared to stand up. It's an incredible thing. We dared to stand up to the corrupt political establishment that has
familiar words.
We are going to make America great again.
Words Donald Trump knows his audience of Republican supporters want to hear. Some have paid thousands to be here in Alabama. Mr. Trump knows, though, that he needs wider support from the country if he's to win the White House. If elected, he said he'd end the war in Ukraine.
It will be done very, very quickly. I'm the only candidate who can make this promise. I will prevent World War III.
But Mr. Trump has some fights of his own before any of that. He was speaking just one day after appearing in court in Washington, D.C., accused of trying to cheat the last election. The latest case on top of separate charges in New York and Florida. One poll suggests some unease about all of this within his party. 52% of Republicans polled online said they would not vote for Donald Trump at the presidential elections if he was serving a prison sentence. 45% said they wouldn't support him if he was convicted of a felony. 35% said they would. But that is all a bit hypothetical. Donald Trump is by far the front runner to win his party's nomination, and it's almost unthinkable that Republicans would support anyone other than their candidate.
You want a smart president. You don't want a stupid president.
And on his legal troubles,
every time they file an indictment, we go way up in the polls. We need one more indictment to close out this election. One more indictment, and this election is closed out. Nobody has even a chance.
But however he spins his troubles as a win, his increasing number of court dates and trials will severely limit his ability to make speeches like this.
The deep state is destroying our nation, but the tables must turn, and we will quickly destroy the deep state.
Sean Dilley, BBC News in Washington.
Well, I spoke to David Allen Sklansky, law professor at Stanford University and former federal prosecutor.
Well, he said the things you expect him to say. He attacked the prosecutors. This is the venue in which he wants to be speaking, in front of a large, adoring crowd, talking about what he wants to talk about, which for the most part is the prosecutors and not what he has done. The problem that he faces is that he's going to wind up in a courtroom, and in a courtroom, that doesn't fly. He's not going to be in front of a large adoring crowd. He can't talk about whatever he wants to talk about. In fact, for the most part, when he's in a courtroom, particularly if this comes to trial, he just has to sit there while lots of other people talk about him. And for a guy whose whole thing is looking strong and powerful, that's kryptonite.
But to many of his supporters, we know that's not the case, is it? They don't mind that he's in court. It feeds into his narrative.
Yeah, well, a lot of his supporters are going to stay with him no matter what. But he can't win the presidency just with his base. I think that the problem that he faces is not just the danger that he could wind up convicted and sent to prison, even though that's a very real danger. The danger in the shorter term is that every time that he is in a courtroom, he's diminished and he's not getting to play the role that he wants to play. And I'm not sure how much that's going to erode his support with his hardcore supporters, but it's definitely going to make it more difficult for him to project the kind of image that he thinks he wants to project in order to win the presidency.
What this whole series of events has uncovered, as it were, are some kind of holes, I suppose, in the US Constitution, some gaps, anomalies, things like disbarment from entering the race to be president. Some people thinking, well, there aren't very many at all. Perhaps there should be a few more. Looking ahead to elections and back at elections, the Electoral College, meaning people can become president even if they get fewer votes than their opponent. Any chance of those big constitutional issues like that being changed at all now?
There's a chance, but not in the short run. We're in an incredibly polarized country right now. And you're right, we have a constitution that's more than 200 years old. It's showing its age in some ways. It's creaky. There are things that weren't planned for. This was a document that was written a long time ago, and there's a lot about Donald Trump they didn't foresee.
Thanks to David Allen Sklansky for talking to me just a little earlier.